it's very okay. So I just want to say welcome to everyone to this first Language Diversity Hub consultation call. So all of you have been involved in trying to set up this Language Diversity Hub, and so this is one of the projects to see how this hub can function to support communities, like Sadiq was talking about now. And I want to say that my idea for this call specifically is very inspired by something Amir once said. So that's why I wanted to say this, yes. Now you'll be nervous. It might not be exactly what you said, but my interpretation was that the only way to scale the completely essential support that Amir is giving to so many communities all around is to clone him. And this has been in my head for a couple of years now. How can we clone Amir? And obviously we can't. So the second best is to record some of those sessions that are is providing so much valuable use for so many people, so that at least we can reuse the recordings. It will not be as good as having Amir in person, but it can also help us build this network of knowledge to grow and spread slightly more efficient. So my ideas of the format of the call today, if it's going to be possible with the technology and everything, is that Abdul or someone from the community can describe overall a bit what Sadiq already started, but maybe even more concrete what exactly they are looking for today. So maybe like 5 minutes or so. And then our experts, Harald, Amir, and Kimberli in the shape of written, can choose in which end they want to start. And if we see we need to, or if we see it's useful, we can create breakout rooms. But we can also just have an open discussion. So do you think, Abdul, I'm not sure if you were able to hear everything, but are you ready to maybe prepare your description of challenge that you would like to get help for? Or is it Sadiq that will do it? It's up to you.
Oh, yeah, Malis. So I missed the last one. What am I supposed to do?
No, well, I was thinking Abdul probably has prepared some questions or a description of the problem that they're facing at the moment, so he might want to share it now. But if the connection I see is jumping in and out of the call, so the connection might not be that good. So if you have an overview of the actual problem that you would like to discuss today, if it's a specific term or if it is, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Can I share a link to some of the terms and words that you find it difficult to translate? So I can say it in the chat box. Is that okay?
It's a little bit unclear. I didn't catch what you were saying right now.
I was saying that is it possible that I share a link in the chat box with regards to some of the words that are technical that you might find it difficult to translate in the Dagbani language?
And you can also share screen if you want to. Is the community having trouble accessing the link or the Zoom call? Is that the problem? Ah, no. Good.
I am not sure they have problem accessing. It's just maybe network.
Yeah.
I see that the Rajat is struggling with his internet, and the Ruki also joined and got disconnected. Yes, so this was the link shared with me by Amir. And when I look at it, I saw the same thing, as I mentioned, the same challenge we encountered in the translation for Dagbani Wikipedia before we went live. So this is not even like a real challenge. I think this link is much easier to translate. There was one that I also found, Ami shared also with me. I think he shared like the glossary. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, I think that yeah, this is the glossary, the link
Okay.
that the link that is now shared in the Zoom chat. That's the glossary. And yeah, and the one that Abdul Rafiu just shared is the user interface. The thing is, so of course, like it's true what they told you, that you are not required to translate it. Like they cannot require you to translate it. They are not your bosses. And they're just giving you something with the hope that it will be useful. The thing is, I don't think that it will be efficient or at all possible to use that thing that they give you if you don't translate the user interface. And it is not possible to translate the user interface without translating the glossary. Now, why am I saying that it's not efficient or completely impossible? I'm saying this because you need to talk about wiki functions not only to them, not only to the wiki functions developers and designers and product managers, you also need to talk about wiki functions among yourselves in the Dagbani editors community. You need to be able to talk about this among yourselves in Dagbani. So if everything there is in English, then you will have to talk about this in English, or maybe like in Dagbani that is, but every time you will start speaking about wiki functions, you will have to switch to English. So that's why the integration cannot really be complete if you don't do this. That's why I suggested. I mean, I recommend wiki functions. Well, the internal technical name is wiki lambda, but never mind. It's the same thing. Like that's the actual technology. That's the actual user interface of creating and editing the functions. It's an extension. It's a MediaWiki extension, just like any other extension, like visual editor, like content translation, like mathematics, like growth experiments, and many others. And all of them ideally should be translated. And wiki functions is just one of them. Wikidata, of course, is very. It's cool. Again, like the internal name of Wikidata is Wikibase, but never mind. To actually use Wikidata fully in your language, you have to translate the Wikibase extension. To actually be able to use wiki functions fully in your language and for your language, you need to translate the wiki functions extension, the wiki lambda extension fully. That way, you will have the words for all those features, function, input, whatever they have there, test, implementation, like all those things. You need terminology for that. And like what this terminology is up to you. Like how it sounds in your language, it's up to you. Maybe you will eventually decide to take most of these words, like to take most of these words and just use them as is. Just copy them from English. It happens. It happens quite a lot. Like the word function, for example, in a lot of languages, it's just like almost the same as in English. Like how the word sounds and written, like it's almost the same as in English. In both Russian and Hebrew, like the other two languages I speak well, it's funkция. It's like sounds the same, and like it's almost the same as in English. But like that's a decision that was made like I don't know decades ago, generations ago by scientists who speak Russian and Hebrew. They just decided to reuse the foreign word, but like that's what everybody uses. But for some other words, it can be a different, like it can be a different native word. Whatever works for your language. The important thing is that you and your friends in the Dagbani editing community, you all agree that this is the word and you all understand what this word means. This is the really important thing. And when you talk among yourselves, you can understand what it is. And do you make a new native word, or do you make, or do you just take the English word and adapt it to the sounds of your language? That's up to you. The important thing is that you have something and you understand what it means. And that's it. Like I also have a few more questions about wiki functions, but I will let you and Harald say something. You and Harald wants to say something.
Thanks. Can you hear me okay? Cool. I just want to, I of course fully agree with Amir on this, but I just want to add another point, and that is that when you translate stuff, especially for wiki functions, I think it's important that you have a good feeling, like you know what this actually means. And that doesn't just mean translating the glossary beforehand, because even when you translate the glossary, you might, misunderstand something, or maybe the glossary is not completely clear. So I would recommend you to, try to edit wiki functions, try to understand what the different things do. Like, what is a function actually? Like, what is an implementation? What is an orchestrator? I don't know what an orchestrator is, but it is something related to wiki functions. So yeah, you should try to edit wiki functions to get an understanding of, okay, what does this thing actually do? Not just read the description, but try it yourself and see how it works. And after you've done that, then you can try to, translate it. And maybe even not translate it, but you can take that info and those skills that you've learned by doing that and discuss that with your community, like other Dagbani speakers. Like, try to explain to others, okay, so this is a function. It does this and this and this. So what should we call this in Dagbani? Because maybe it can be really simple. Like, a function is a doer. It does something, so we will call it a doer. You don't have to necessarily use very complex language for it, even though the English is complex. It would be nice if it's even simpler in Dagbani. But that's completely up to you as a community. But try to use it, get an understanding of how it works, and then discuss amongst yourselves to try to figure out the best terms. And in Translate Wiki, at least, I would recommend using the terminology gadget I made, because it was made for this exact scenario. So, yeah, that's it for me for now.
I think that is very useful. And that is currently what we are doing with them now, combining technical people, like those who understand functions in general, not necessarily like Wikimedia specifically, and some other experienced Wikimedians. So we have a blend of Wikimedians, computer scientists who understands like functions, those who have like computer background, and then the language expert. So working with the wiki functions team like this would help us to further understand, as Jon is suggesting, further help us understand what that particular project is, like the name space itself, and then the use of different functions. What exactly do they do, and what do they mean to achieve inside Wikipedia articles and stuff like that. That when we do that with them for a number of times, it will give us an understanding of how we should translate it, basically. So if you understand what it does, then it's very easy for you to like, it's probably going to be easier for you to translate it on TranslateWiki or even the glossary. So knowing the, the project itself in general is very useful to the Dagbani committee, I think. They have to like understand what exactly abstract Wikipedia is. I've seen like an explainer video, a page, and a lot of other, not too much resources, but some basic resource, like very simple resources that allow us users to understand what exactly wiki functions is and how it is going to be when it is fully integrated on all other language Wikipedias. So yeah, this is very good. And like Amir also said, we don't have to think about it in a very wild way, but just trying to understand it in our own way so that we ourselves can use it, because at the end of the day, just like TranslateWiki, translating from TranslateWiki and using them on your interface. If you don't translate it very well, you may end up not even understanding your own translation. When you open the Wikipedia article, it actually happened to us that we did some translations, and then after it went live, I saw some of the tabs and I'm like, how did we got this? Like, what that? Now I have to switch it back to English to now understand, oh, this was what we translated like that, because like there was no understanding of what we were translating. We just came out with our own like complex translations, like combining several words to mean that particular thing without paying attention to the usage in Wikimedia ecosystem. So after we opened it, I now looked at some of the tabs and I was like, I don't understand this, especially those in the right side. So I have to go back to English and say, oh, this is how we translated it. And so continuously we were able to like update some of the translations on TranslateWiki again. Some of them still need updates, honestly speaking, because I see some that when a random user opens the Dagbani Wikipedia article, they won't understand what that means. To be honest with you, I can say that boldly. I'm sure my colleagues can also relate. It is only meant to be understood by some of us who have used it many times. But like a random person completely new to Wikipedia, when they open it, they will not understand unless they compare it to English Wikipedia. That is still a challenge we face as a committee. And this has to do with how we have embraced English and the fact that we haven't really been able to integrate or build a stronger representation of our languages online. It makes it very easy, very difficult for us to understand certain things. I'll allow Amir to come in.
Yeah, about mistakes in translation. I translate everything to Hebrew, and I try to translate everything as quickly as possible, as soon as it appears in the software. And if I know how to translate something that I translated, that's what I do most of the time. If I don't understand something, I try to ask the developer of that feature, what does it mean? And when I understand it myself, I update the documentation so that the next translators will understand it better. Despite all of this, I often make mistakes in translation. And because I try to translate everything as early as possible, it very often happens, like almost always it happens, that it is translated into my language even before it is actually deployed and released and used. And then I try, not always I actually do it, I have to admit, but I try whenever I can to actually try to use the feature and see if it makes sense. And quite often I see mistakes that I made in translation, and then I fix them. And that's one of the principles of what we call the wiki way. We make it possible, we make it actually very easy to make mistakes, but we also make it easy to fix the mistakes. So that's what wikis are about in general. Like it's supposed to be easy to fix mistakes, and it's supposed like it's by that logic, it's supposed to be easy to fix wrong translations on Translate Wiki. I will go even further, and I will say that quite often the messages in the original English are wrong, even before you translate them. I find mistakes in English quite frequently, and I try to correct them as much as I can. So you know, mistakes happen. That's one of the things. Nothing is set in stone, as as Kim just wrote a few minutes ago in the chat. You can change this. Like if something is wrong, if something is hard to understand, if something is hard to translate, it's possible to change it. I don't know if anybody from the Dagbani community is in the Telegram group for wiki functions. Somebody should be, like all the people, all the people who are involved in this somehow. They should be in the wiki functions group on Telegram. It's pretty active. And if something is hard to understand, just ask there. And finally, so there's a question. Oh yeah, well, so the example of the word the words type converter and transient. So transient, I don't even know. I wouldn't speak about transient right now. It appears in the glossary. I remember that it appears in the glossary. I'm not sure that it is actually used anywhere right now. I don't remember seeing it actually anywhere on the Wikifunction site. So let's forget about that. But type and type converter probably is used somewhere, and type, like the word type, that's a very important word in programming and computer science. So having a good translation for type would be very useful. And again, you can just decide among yourself, among the Dagbani speakers, that you will just reuse the English word. But the important thing is not whether it's native or transliterated. The important thing is that all of you understand what it means. So yeah, if you want to discuss more of that, we can do it.
Thank you so much, Amir. Yeah, so I just shared a link as an example. This particular translation of edit source on Wikipedia, I still don't understand how we got this. Yeah, I've been telling some of the Dagbani committee members that we have to take a second look at it. Even there, if you look at, I know, like Amir, Kimberli, and you understand, like this. Look at how long the translation is, like the edit source, and then the translation of that in Dagbani is so long. And when I translate it like literally, like just direct translation, it doesn't make sense to me. Aside from the fact that it's so long and doesn't represent the actual edit source that I think it should be.
So the trouble with edit source
in Dagbani is like
it's one of those messages that
which
perhaps
makes sense where it comes from. So source, where it comes from, where it started. You know, so how does that
edit source, like these two words in English, they fold in themselves so much of the history of Wikipedia, because when Wikipedia began, it was only edit and it was only source, so you didn't have to say edit source. It was just, there was no other way to edit. It was only editing, like all editing was in the source code of Wikitext. And then the visual editor appeared in 2012 or 2013. And
yes.
Lots of people wanted to keep editing in source, the old way, not the visual way. So you had to make a difference. Like the developers of Visual Editor wanted to encourage people to use Visual Editor. So they wanted to change the default message, the short edit message. They want to point it to the Visual Editor. But then how do you preserve the old functionality of editing in source code? So that would be edit source. If you understand that, then translating edit source become easier, I think, I hope. If you understand this whole history and this whole functionality, and if you understand the different meanings of the word source, because here source refers to the source code in the markup language. There's also another word in the world of Wikimedia, which is also source, and that's a completely different thing, which is like the source of information, the source of the reference. And like in English, both of them are source, which is it makes stuff even more confusing. But that's why like you should do all those things. You should write articles, and you should translate the interface, and as you do both things, they inform each other. The localization informs the usage, and the usage informs the localization. And it's okay to update the translations. It's okay to fix your mistakes. It's okay to have new understanding. Whenever you update the translation, unless you are really sure that your update is good, you should discuss it with other people who use the same functionality. But yeah, like that happens all the time.
Thank you so much. So yeah, that's just one of the things, but there are a lot of them on the Dagbani Wikipedia that not even the users can really understand what, but we just take it like that and then we roll with it. So it is not our fault to some extent. And yeah, so I'm just pointing that to you, Abdurrafiu Musa, that edit source need to be changed, because the source, as we all are made to understand, is not like the source of something, that we had translated it to mean. So it's kind of like different from that. And I like the Finnish and Sami one that Kimberli posted, edit wiki text. So yeah, this is much simpler if there's a simple translation for wiki text also. We may still not get wiki text also if you want to replace that. But yeah, maybe it's the linguistic structure of the language, the different languages. I don't have much idea about how that works in a broader context, but I think some of the languages are just so different from other languages.
But think of the audience, like think of the user who will use this, because there are several different types of users. There is the user who is already experienced with editing Wikipedia or other wikis. And basically, specifically when edit and edit source were created, they were like these two, they were, especially edit source, they were very much made for the audience of people who are already experienced, because there were a lot of conflicts back then, a lot of arguments. Is the visual editor needed at all? Is it already a good time to enable the visual editor, or should it be like fixed a bit more before it's more like to make it more stable and only then enable it? So a lot, like back in like 2012, 2013, that was a very turbulent time. But we are here now in 2024. So when you translate something, you need to think about the audience of people who are experienced, and the audience of people who are not experienced, and the audience of people who know English, and the audience of people who don't know English. And you can translate it only once. Like it has to be like one translation for all of them. That's the extra challenge. And it's the same challenge for everything. It's the same challenge for all the languages, including English, right? Like in English, you also need to make something that works well for experienced people and for unexperienced people. So it's difficult. But like wiki text, like if you edit wiki text, so if you say edit wiki text, it may probably work well with people who are experienced and who know what wiki text is. Will it work well for people who are not experienced and who are editing Wikipedia for the first time? I don't know. I haven't tried. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. Like I'm not making any claims here. So just discuss this. It's a very fun thing to discuss. Discuss this with your friends who know Dagbani. Like try to find some friends who know Wikipedia and find some friends who do know Wikipedia, and try to find something that works with both. Edit source. It's like it's one of the most important buttons ever. Like we have like more than 20,000 messages to translate. Edit source is one of the maybe like 20 most important ones because it's like the most important functionality. So it's a good idea to translate it well.
Thank you so much. Musa, Rukaya, do you have any input? And I see some of them have dropped. Yeah, Ali just joined. Musa, Ruki, do you have any input? Other challenge regarding translations?
Can I ask a question? Maybe? Coming back to the word that was mentioned earlier, type, to understand that word type from a linguistic perspective, I mean, like, what questions would you be asking to help the Dagbani look for a good word in their own language without knowing the language yourself? How would you attack it?
Is the question for me?
It was more from Amir, like how would Amir start asking questions to the communities to make you kind of think to look for how to translate a word like type, for example, or type converter?
Well, again, before we go to type converter, I'm not sure that type converters are actually is already an implemented feature. I think that it's a planned feature. I'm not sure that this feature already exists, but types definitely exist currently in the wiki functions site. Ugh, I, first, let me just quickly take a look at the current what is this glossary. I think that the current definition of type is pretty good, but I might be wrong. Let's see. Type. The type of an object tells us how to interpret and understand the given object. Well, this assumes that you know what an object is. I think that there is probably also an entry for object. Yeah, there is an object in wiki functions synonym of Z object, and the Z object is entry within wiki functions. Every entry within wiki functions. Okay, an object. Okay, let's go back to type. It's all a bit generic and technical, but okay. Tell us how to interpret and understand the given object and what can be done with the object. For example, if we have an object with the value 2023, depending on whether its type is integer or year or string, we understand that object differently. Every object refers to a thing in the real world. Okay, I would probably update it by now. This was probably written about 3 or 4 years ago. I would probably update it now to make it clearer. I would just say that a type describes what a piece of information is. Like, is it a number or a string or something else? So numbers and strings definitely different things. So if you take 2023 as a string, and if you take it as a number, you do different things with it. So like if you add 1 to 2023 as a number, then you get 2024. But if you add 1 as a string, then you get 20231. Right? So that's what types are for. And you can have also, so number and string are the most basic types. There's also Boolean, which also has which can also be true and false, and there can also be many other types. So it's a pretty it's one of the most fundamental concepts in programming and in computer science. So on Wikifunctions, which is all about programming and computer science, that is a pretty central concept that should be translated well. And so is object. Object, like they all have, like everything on Wikifunctions is an object. Every function is an object. And so on. So yeah, so these things they need to be discussed with people who understand computer science and people who understand Dagbani. Yeah, it's not. I'm not saying that it's easy, but I am saying that it will sooner or later be necessary.
Great, excellent, Amir. And I see Moses' comments about functions. So basically, if you do like information technology or computer science, you typically like know what a function is. It's kind of like taking some instruction and then bringing out an output. So basically, like there are computer terms that are used for the project itself. That's basically how it operates. You give out like an input, and then it will repeat them. Let's say 1 + 1. The output of that will be 2. Kind of like that's how basically I can explain what a function is. And I don't know if you are having any. Okay, Musa, you want to speak?
Yeah, hello.
Yeah.
Can I be here?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. So that's where you landed is basically one of the challenges that we are facing. If I can call them the characters of our language, our forefathers, our great grandfathers, they were not privy to technology or its terms as we are privy to today, and they were the ones that set the language. We came and met it, and we are using it. So it's kind of very difficult to translate those technical words, like those in the field of computer, like Sadek mentioned, computer, ICT, the IT words, the terminologies associated with it. It's kind of very difficult to translate them, like the functions that I mentioned earlier on. So is it okay for us to, and I think as of now, there are no measures in place to kind of like those who crafted the language for us, they were not privy to this kind of technology or knowledge. Now that we are privy to it and we are going to be using it, there is no plan in place to sit down and then get words or terms to translate those words. So is it okay for us to kind of just transliterate most of this, some of these terminologies? If not, you may end up using a whole passage to translate or describe one terminology or one word, which will be kind of look odd. And some of the interfaces, like we are seeing some of them currently. Tariq just cited about edit source. Sometimes you see the translation in English, and you are also wondering, where did this one come from? So is it okay for us to transliterate these terminologies? And I bet you if we are going to do that, we'll be seeing more English words in the translations than Dagbani. What do we do? Thanks.
Anybody wants to respond? Maybe Amir. And I think this is the same thing Amir has been saying, like, and the problem remains the same. For example, Mali just asked if we have a translation for function. Right now, I can't even, understand what a translation of function would be like in Dagbani. And then even data type is really a complex issue. And I am happy that we as like a community, well, nobody's thinking about this anywhere. Like even in education, the Ghana educational system doesn't even bother about these things for our local languages. And it is very important that Wikimedia is giving us this kind of challenge to think it out and come out with our own ways. We cannot also say, like Musa is saying, can we say because our forefathers did not know anything about computer or other languages have different ways of describing them, and because we have to combine so many words to get a meaning for people to understand what we really mean when we say this or that, does that mean we should fold our arms and relax? No. So there's something to do. We see that it's a real challenge, and as Wikimedians, we have to do something about it. So beyond doing something about it as a community, how do we now let people know what we have done and also accept it? And I now see the need to engage for example, the Dagbani Orthography Committee. They have a lot of things that they've been doing for a very long time now. But even with their work, it is mostly focused on the usual things that we all know, like the dialectical differences in all the languages. Like Dagbani has different dialects. That's what they are focusing on. They are not even thinking about the computer terms, like the real things that doesn't even exist. Nobody's thinking about it. So when I look at the orthography, Dagbani orthography, when I saw the document, I think all the conversations or the discussions they've been having about orthography in Dagbani, how do we make this standard? How do we keep this? There used to be some special Latin words that they were using, and through the orthography committee, they've been able to replace it with other things, like combining two English words. And those words doesn't even exist anymore. I don't know if Musa remembers. There used to be some letters in Dagbani that has specific pronunciation, and all of a sudden, those letters have disappeared. We don't use it again. I don't know how come. And they try to now, I don't know whether they were finding it difficult to integrate it in computer or maybe even in textbooks, typing them in books, or they don't have a way to put it. And they just replace it with a combination of two English words to mean the same thing because the sounds are the same, basically. So we are very much in a good position to create something new for maybe the next generation. It is very difficult. When you ask me what a function is, I know function in computer. I can say it in English, like without thinking twice. Data types, I know because I have done computer and information technology. But if you ask me now, say it in your language, then it becomes a problem. How do you describe it in your language? It would take me like minutes to tell somebody what I'm talking about when I say function, or what I mean when I say function. So that's just the complexity of the language. I don't know. But yeah, we still have to do something. We still have to do something. That's the thing. There's nothing we can do about that at this stage, but we need to do something.
I think you're doing a great work, Sadiq. We are now at we have already done 1 hour, and other people might have other things to do now. So I just wonder if Abdul wanted to say something at the very end.
Thank you so much. My network was very fast, and I couldn't barely get to listen from what was discussed. But I just want to ask a few questions regarding some of the technical words, especially those relating to computer work. I don't know whether it will be appropriate if we can transliterate them instead of translate, because if sign language, those like that they were denied or they never had access to anything like computer or technology, and now whether we like, and then all of a sudden we have words that we have to translate from.
I think Musa is also asking the same thing, Rafi, and that's what everybody asks me. Like, that's the same thing I hear from everybody, and I just understand them.
Yeah.
Everybody in the community, if you ask them, they say, instead of creating something, and because they're also looking at the user who doesn't know what we have done, how do they simply understand it? So everybody in the community will opt for transliteration. Let's just transliterate for our users so that it makes it very easy. At least when they see the transliteration of that word, they can understand it. So everybody, 80%, I would tell you that, you see, Musa just said the same thing, and that's the same thing Rafi is saying. Everybody is telling me that instead of having a translation for this word, look, it's almost impossible for us to find it because we didn't know about it, our forefathers didn't know about it. Let's just transliterate for people to see and understand. That is what matters. But that is not how we want it. It doesn't have to be so. There's something that needs to be done.
I think that is a very good message to leave the chat with, Sadiq, that these words are too important to just bring the English vocabulary all over when you have a rich local culture where you can find very good words that are going to fit better and is going to make the technology feel stronger in your community, more yours, right? Less colonial or whatever. What do you think, Amir and Harald? Do you have any last? Oh, Kimberli, you want to talk? Yeah.
Let's
Before,
see if I can croak it out. So the Northern Sami and the Sami communities in general, like the word for tags, HTML tags, they use the term that was a tag for that is still a tag for the reindeer, that they attach the number of the reindeer, the name of the reindeer, or the herder's name, information on it. So that word has been used for tags, where most languages have just said taggy or something that's similar to tag, but they actually use a word from their own language. And quite a few of the terms have been repurposed from old dialectal words that have been, what do you call it, dying out or not being used as much. So that's one way of coming up with new terminology. Sorry, I sound horrible.
no.
No, it's a very sensible thing. I should mention that a lot of those English words, they are actually Latin and Greek. Type is a Greek word. Category is a Greek word. Transient is a Latin word. Function is a Latin word. Like, I'm pretty sure that like almost all the terminology for wiki functions is from Latin and Greek. Wiki is from Hawaii language, but almost everything else is from Latin and Greek. So, it's not so horrible to take words from English. The important thing is not whether you take or don't take a word from English. The important thing is that you understand what the word means, and other people who will read this word, they will understand what the word means. That's the most important thing. And whether you translate or transliterate, whatever. The Wikimedia Foundation, the Language Diversity Hub, the whatever. Nobody forces you to decide one way or the other. It's your language, so decide whatever works. But works, like that's the important thing. Like it has to work. And this is something that you can judge eventually. Does it work or does it not work?
Thank you, Amir. Yeah, that was a good reminder. And maybe someone are able to create a word that is so cool that it's gonna spread instead. That would be the hope. Yes. So we all start using it. Musa or Ali, do you want to share something? And then I think we have to end the meeting afterwards.
Okay, so basically, from what I have just heard you all guys talking about, I think it is necessary for us to have a continuous advocacy on these particular aspects of the language, where we have to interpret the computer dialect into our own verbatims. So basically, I think we need this strategic partnership and that of cooperations to be able to come up with something. Something is really going to be difficult, but we have to, as Wikimedians, to find a way through in order to make this happen. I think this is all I can say for now.
I completely agree with you, Ali, and that's what Kimberly also said. We need to do a lot of create the awareness, like some of the things that we are creating. We need to make sure people take it and they accept it, because they are very useful. We cannot continue transliteration and adapting other languages if we really think about having our own language visible. So yeah, we'll continue to further advocate and collaborate with especially the photography committee, like matters in language revitalization, or the language committee in general. Even researchers, we can continue to collaborate with them and create the awareness of the term that we are creating so that everybody will accept it. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you to Amir and Harald and Kimberli for sharing from your expertise, and to the Dagbani community for sharing from your experience, which is also expertise. I hope that this has been helpful somehow, and then I hope that we will continue the dialogue and that you continue to ask, and then I will share some of these things that have been said on the video. I will share it with the Dagbani community, of course, so you can watch the whole video, because I think Amir has shared a lot of valuable insights here. I am sure this is something you are telling to people all the time, Amir. So now you can just put the video instead. And yes, and check into the Etherpad. Kimberli has taken loads of good notes that hopefully we can continue to use. And yeah, that's it. Thank you again so much. It has been a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.